Hello, everyone, and welcome. So today, we're going to take a trip back in time, back to when a brand new, independent India was figuring out how to write its own rulebook. Yep, we are talking all about the making of the Indian Constitution, which, by the way, is the longest written constitution in the entire world. And that brings up a really big question.
I mean, just think about it. With so many religions, all these different languages, and countless cultures, creating a single book of law that works for everyone in such a diverse nation? That was a monumental mission, to say the least. So, how did India's leaders even begin to tackle this massive task? Let's dive right in and find out.
So here's our game plan. To really get a grip on this, we'll walk through these 5 key areas. We'll start with the mission itself, then meet the expert teams who made it happen. We'll explore where the inspiration came from, see how it was all adapted for India, and finally, we'll wrap up with the most important takeaways for your exams.
Okay, first things first, let's set the stage and really understand the challenge. India had just won its independence, right? But that freedom also came with the trauma of partition and a whole bunch of other massive problems. The mission, then, was to create a constitution that could unite a divided country, guarantee equal rights for every single citizen, and, pave the way for the nation's future.
Now, a task this huge, you just can't do it all in one go. So the solution was a classic divide-and-conquer strategy. A Constituent Assembly was put together, and within that assembly, they created these smaller, expert committees to handle all the different parts of the puzzle.
So let's talk about how this was all structured. These weren't just any committees, This was the dream team of that time. We're talking about the sharpest legal, political, and social minds in the country. The huge responsibility of drawing up the blueprint for a new India, it was all on their shoulders.
All right, you're going to want to pay close attention here, because direct questions in exams often come from this very slide. See, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he was heading 2 committees, the Rules and the Flag Committees. Pandit Nehru was responsible for the union level, the big picture stuff. And Sardar Patel, he handled the massive task of integrating all the provincial states. But out of all of them, the most critical committee was, you guessed it, the Drafting Committee.
And who was the chairman of that all-important drafting committee? None other than Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. He's not called the chief architect of the Indian Constitution for nothing. It was his genius, his meticulous study of draft after draft, and his leadership through intense debates that shaped the final, coherent document we have today. His contribution was simply monumental.
So the dream team was in place, but where do you even start with a project like this? Well, India's leaders didn't try to reinvent the wheel. Instead, they acted like master chefs. They went around the world and picked the absolute best ingredients from the world's finest constitutions to create the perfect recipe for India.
Now, the biggest influence, without a doubt, came from Britain. It makes sense, right? India had been under their system for about 200 years. So the structure of a parliamentary government, the whole idea of the rule of law, and even the concept of single citizenship, these were familiar. These ideas were adopted and pretty much formed the basic skeleton of our political system.
But just having a government structure isn't enough, right? You need rights for the people. And for that, the founders looked towards the United States. Our fundamental rights? Yep, directly inspired by the U.S. Constitution. And it's the same for the idea of an independent judiciary, a court system that can check the government's power. That also came from the USA.
Here's a really simple way to remember the difference between the two. Think of it like this. From Britain, we took the system, the machinery to run the government, the very structure of our democracy. And from the USA, we took the ideas that protect and empower the citizens. You could say we took the soul of our democracy.
Okay, now let's look at a couple of other really important sources. From Ireland, we got this very unique idea called the Directive Principles of State Policy, or DSPS for short. And from Canada, we took the model of a federal system, but with a very strong center. This basically means that while states have their own powers, the central government still holds a lot of the key authority.
So what in the world are these DPSPs? Well, you can think of them as a set of goals or a moral compass that the Constitution gives to the government. They're guidelines that lawmakers should keep in mind whenever they're making new laws or policies. And the ultimate goal? To create a true welfare state.
And believe me, the shopping list doesn't end there. From Australia, we got the idea of the concurrent list. From Germany, we learned about emergency provisions. From the former Soviet Union, we took inspiration for our fundamental duties. And, this is a really crucial one, from South Africa, we adopted the procedure for how to amend or change the Constitution so it can evolve with the times.
Now, after hearing all of this, some critics over the years have called the Indian Constitution a bag of borrowings. But is that really fair? Is it true? Absolutely not. And that brings us to what is probably the most important point of this entire process.
See, the key is right here in this quote. This was not a copy-paste job, not at all. Every single idea was debated, it was analyzed, and then it was carefully modified to fit India's unique circumstances, to suit the soil of our nation. It was Indianized. For instance, we adopted the British parliamentary system, sure, but we replaced their hereditary king with our own elected president. That's adaptation, not imitation.
All right, let's switch gears a bit and quickly wrap this all up from an exam point of view. This part is super important for your revision, so listen up.
If you need to remember the whole process, just think of these 3 simple steps. Step 1. Expert committees were formed to create the initial drafts. Step 2. They looked at constitutions from all over the world and took the best ideas. And Step 3, the most important step. They adapted every single one of those ideas to fit the Indian context. It wasn't just borrowing, it was intelligent adaptation.
So this incredible document, born from so much hard work, so much research, and endless debate, became the very foundation of our nation. But the final question I want to leave you with is this. Is a document that's over 70 years old still just as relevant in the fast-changing India of today? That's something for you to think about. Thank you for joining me.